Fleet Admiral Corvus Thane stood on the bridge of the Imperial dreadnought Inevitable Conquest, watching the human fleet through the tactical display with growing unease. Something was wrong with this picture, though he couldn't articulate what. For 3 days, the human ships had maintained perfect formation at exactly 12 million kilometers distance, close enough for sensors, far enough to avoid immediate engagement. They weren't running. They weren't attacking. They were just waiting. "Sir," reported Tactical Officer Vesandra, her crystalline sensory arrays flickering with confusion. "The human fleet continues to broadcast the same message on all frequencies. They're requesting one more diplomatic conference before what they term irreversible consequences." Admiral Thane's mandibles clicked with irritation. The Terran Federation had already rejected the Empire's generous offer of client state status. They had refused to provide tribute, declined to acknowledge imperial sovereignty, and committed the ultimate insult of suggesting that the Empire reconsider its expansion policies for everyone's sake. "Their consequences will indeed be irreversible," Thane growled. "Signal the fleet. We begin bombardment in 1 standard hour." What Admiral Thane didn't understand, what no member of the Galactic Empire could understand, was that humans had spent their entire evolutionary history perfecting one particular skill that no other known species had ever needed to develop, fighting things that were bigger, stronger, and better equipped than they were. Captain Elena Vasquez stood in the command center of the Terran Federation ship, Unconquerable Spirit, watching the Imperial fleet begin its attack formation through displays that showed impossible tactical readouts. Humanity's first interstellar war fleet consisted of exactly 47 vessels, each one smaller than an Imperial escort corvette. They were outnumbered 300 to 1. They were outgunned by factors that required scientific notation to express. They had warned the Empire not to fight them. The Empire had not listened. "Captain," reported Lieutenant Commander Park, "we're receiving final authorization codes from Fleet Command. Operation Prometheus is approved for immediate execution." Vasquez nodded grimly. Prometheus, the plan that Earth's military strategists had hoped they would never need to implement. The plan that violated every principle of civilized warfare that the galaxy had observed for 10,000 years. "Signal all ships," she commanded. "Begin cognitive warfare protocols." The first indication Admiral Thane had that something was terribly wrong came when his helmsman began giggling. "Navigation Officer K. Thara," report Thane commanded. "Sir." K. Thara replied, her voice carrying an edge of hysteria that no properly trained Imperial officer should ever display. "The stars are. They're laughing at us, sir. Can't you hear them?" Thane activated his command console to access K. Thara's neural readouts, and immediately wished he hadn't. Her cognitive activity patterns were unlike anything in Imperial medical databases, chaotic, recursive, and somehow infectiously disruptive. Worse still, similar patterns were appearing throughout his crew. "Medical teams to all stations," Thane ordered. "We have some kind of biological warfare contamination." Dr. Melandra materialized via quantum communication from the medical bay, her form flickering with transmission instability. "Admiral, this isn't biological. We're dealing with some form of directed consciousness attack. The humans appear to be broadcasting quantum information patterns designed to disrupt Veltaran neural architecture." What Dr. Melandra couldn't explain to her admiral was that humanity had discovered something during their first contact with galactic civilization. Every advanced species in the galaxy had evolved past the capacity for certain types of consciousness. The process that had made galactic species smarter, more rational, and more technologically capable had also made their minds incredibly vulnerable to what humans called cognitive viruses, information patterns that their optimized brains couldn't process without experiencing cascading system failures. Humans, with their chaotic, unoptimized neural architecture, were immune to these patterns. More than immune, they could create them. "Sir," reported Weapons Officer Gentuk, "I'm detecting massive energy buildups from the human fleet." "But Admiral, the readings don't match any known weapon systems. They appear to be." "Sir, they appear to be broadcasting pure information." The human ships had opened thousands of communication channels and begun transmitting what appeared to be random data streams. But the data wasn't random. It was carefully crafted cognitive malware designed to exploit the psychological blind spots that evolution had created in every advanced galactic species. Admiral Thane watched in horror as his perfectly disciplined crew began experiencing what could only be described as directed mental breakdowns. His navigator was convinced that geometry was personally offended by starship movement. His weapons officer had become convinced that firing weapons would hurt the universe's feelings. His communications specialist was trying to apologize, to empty space for the violence of existing in 3 dimensions. "Dr. Malandra," Thane demanded, "countermeasures." "Now, sir, there are no countermeasures. These information patterns are targeting cognitive structures that we need for basic rational thought. Filtering them out would require lobotomizing our entire crew. And Admiral, the patterns are designed to be self-replicating. Every time we try to analyze them, we spread them to additional personnel." The humans had weaponized the one thing that advanced galactic civilizations had trained themselves not to do: think irrationally. Their attacks weren't targeting ships or weapons, they were targeting the ability to process information logically. Within 6 hours, the Imperial fleet was completely incapacitated. Not destroyed, incapacitated. Every ship remained perfectly functional, but their crews were unable to coordinate any military action because their command structures had dissolved into philosophical arguments about whether actions could be moral if reality was subjective. Captain Vasquez opened a communication channel to the Imperial flagship. "Admiral Thane, this is Captain Vasquez of the Terran Federation. We tried to warn you. What have you done to my fleet?" Thane demanded, his voice carrying the strain of a commander trying to maintain authority over a crew that was currently debating whether orders could exist if language was just arbitrary symbols. "We've reminded them that reality is much weirder than your civilizations have allowed yourselves to remember," Vasquez replied gently. "Your minds are incredibly powerful, but they've been optimized for efficiency rather than resilience. That makes them vulnerable to concepts that don't fit your rational frameworks. This is a violation of every principle of civilized warfare. Admiral, with respect, your empire just attempted to conquer a planet with 8 billion people on it. We defended ourselves using the only weapons that could level the playing field against an opponent with superior technology. The aftermath of the Battle of Sol became the most studied military engagement in galactic history. Not because of the tactics involved, but because of what it revealed about consciousness itself. The humans had proven that in a universe where everyone thought alike, the ability to think differently was the ultimate weapon. The Galactic Empire sued for peace exactly 7 days later, not because they couldn't rebuild their fleet, but because they realized that any species capable of weaponizing irrationality was too dangerous to have as an enemy. The peace treaty included one very specific clause: the Empire would provide humanity with full diplomatic recognition and territorial sovereignty, and in exchange, humans would agree to never, under any circumstances, teach other species how to think like them.